program for graduate studies at Charles Darwin University. Hello, my name is Tara Brabazon and I'm the Dean of Graduate Studies at Charles Darwin University, and welcome to our Touchstone Progression session. And the session today explores how to manage student perfectionism. The theoretical and empirical work on perfectionism emerges from philosophy and it emerges from psychology. And they are very different modes of thinking about this term. Different ways of thinking about behaviour, different ways of thinking about this issue. But I think those differences are productive and instructive. The literature around perfectionism has been increasingly reporting it as a problem, both inside and outside high degree programs. The desire to reach the unreachable, we'll all start doing the song shortly, the desire to reach the unreachable, to construct an expectation that may be impossible and to be disappointed in the capacity to reach it, has become an increasing problem in doctoral education. But what makes perfectionism so challenging is not the creation of impossible expectations, but the harsh self-treatment, so the self-talk that results from not reaching this imagined standard. This process is often described as self-criticism. As per the Thomas Curran and Andrew Hill study of perfectionism across generations, they studied 40,000 American, British, Canadian college students between 1989 and 2016. And they revealed not only a 33% increase in perfectionism, wow, since 1989, but three distinct modes of perfectionism: self-oriented perfectionism, socially prescribed perfectionism, and other-oriented perfectionism. So self-oriented perfectionism is an irrational imperative to be perfect, creating unrealistic expectations and are highly critical of themselves. Socially prescribed perfectionism is the belief that their social circle is overly demanding and that their social circle judges them harshly. They must display perfectionism to gain the approval of the social group, and if they don't, they will gain rejection. Other-oriented perfectionism involves those who construct unrealistic standards for the people around them and evaluate others critically. I'd like to call this the social media model of perfectionism as well, hashtag judge a student. The type of perfectionism exhibited is constructed via where the person receives their self-worth. Right, so self-oriented perfectionists gain self-worth from achievement. Socially prescribed perfectionists gain their self-worth when others approve of them. And other-oriented perfectionists feel self-worth when others respect and admire them. From this research, perfectionism is seen to be created through genetic factors. They have done twin studies, and also social processes. So family environments increase the tendency for perfectionism. Therefore, once more, we can see clearly we can blame our mothers for absolutely everything. And yes, I'm only joking, but gender is not a mitigating variable here. This is really interesting. So men and women exhibit perfectionism in equal measure. We've yet to see some studies about the non-binary identifying and trans community, but that would be an interesting study too. So the increase in the last 30 years of perfectionism has been explained, and it's been explained by Harvard's professor of political philosophy, Michael Sandel, as a movement, if you will, from the market economy to a market society. That is, within his argument, why perfectionism has increased. So this means that competition has saturated all areas of our lives. So education, Facebook, number of friends, GPA. We've got a lot more metrics to assess ourselves. Everything in our lives pretty well is given a metric. So we sort, sift and rank almost every area of our lives. This results in reinforcing the lie of meritocracy. Meritocracy is the nonsensical ideology that if we all just work hard enough, we'll make it. So therefore, by this model, if a student doesn't make it, that means they haven't worked hard enough. For perfectionists, they've created this impossible ideal and they didn't make it. So therefore, they didn't work hard enough by the meritocratic model. And you can see the result then is shame, self-doubt, self-blame. This creates a disordered self, focusing on flaws, deficiencies and inadequacies, and also a hypersensitivity to criticism and to failure. So a student can see the challenge that this little witch's brew of perfectionism can create. We can see what's happening in our doctoral programs. We've got this dreadful combination of impossible standards, competing with other PhD students, feeling like a failure, and then a supervisor tries to help a student by offering feedback, and then the student reads the feedback as a proof of a student's failure. A PhD student will never present the perfect research project. No student will ever present a faultless or flawless candidature. It is the worst research a student will ever do, not the best. But if a student is building their self-esteem on the basis of other people, and those other people in our circumstance are a student's supervisor or their peers, their fellow students, or referees, or people in an audience at an academic conference, then a student is lining themselves up for a bucket of misery. Academic life is based on so much nastiness, aggression and competitiveness. And of course, people like me, I'm sure people like you, just laugh this off. So, a student didn't like me, someone didn't like me, didn't like my work. I'm so sad. And what's your name again? But if a student relies on other people's views to create their sense of self, then we are really heading into troubled waters. And this is serious, very, very serious, because what occurs when perfectionism results in a disordered self is that shame and guilt emerge, depression and anxiety emerge, and yes, perfectionism is implicated in suicide. This is all incredibly worrying. And when I'm asked why the mental health issues are increasing in PhD students, you can see some of the reasons why this issue is emerging in this Touchstone session today. But what can we do as a community of scholars to assist our peers and our friends and, of course, our students with perfectionism? Firstly, we must use the expertise of a mental health professional. There are techniques through talk therapy that can enable change. But there are also 5 strategies I use, really mantras really, when I'm trying to help a student. So when students are in this sort of looped conversation with themselves, these mantras sometimes help. 1, failure is a gift. I know this seems beyond the pale, but failure is not a weakness. Failure is a gift because it allows students to improve. Failure is not a sign of weakness or a lack of ability. It is a life trial. It is a pilot study and exists to move a student to a better point and a better stage in their research lives. 2, don't compete with others. Again, I know this seems antithetical in our ruthless, nasty times, but as I always say, success is not a finite resource, so stop the competition. If we work on building teams and collaboration, then competition is blocked or marginalised. If competition is at least parked, then students can stay in their own lane and complete their own thesis. 3, show some compassion to our students. Life is hard, really, really hard. And life with a PhD enrolment is even harder. So we need to be kind to our students. So, yep, today was a dreadful day. Maybe it's been a dreadful week. Maybe it's been a dreadful month. Maybe the whole year's been a bit of a disappointment. Say something truly embarrassing has happened during the day. The key is to remind our students that the dreadful day ends. And a PhD candidature is 3 years. And every day there may be a difficult day, but tomorrow will come. And therefore we just have to care for our students during the difficult days and remind them that tomorrow will be better. 4, create meaningful goals and lots of them. What happens is perfectionists create a very few impossible goals. And the best way to manage this goal inflation is to help students work on their milestones and their annual reports and reviews each year. And what I would do is I would check in to those big annual goals once a month. That means we're removing the multiple impossible goals, and instead what we're doing is we're putting them in domains. Not singular impossible goals, but learning goals, development goals. And I focus on scaffolding, some micro achievements up to these goals. So we're no longer dealing with 1 or 2 completely impossible goals. Create achievable, scaffolded goals. And of course, 5, my favourite one, done is better than perfect. High goals block any work being completed because it leads to procrastination. The risk of failure is so high that perfectionists don't actually start a task. They brood, they become paralysed, and they don't even start. So construct small, manageable and doable tasks for our students and start. Just start. I know when people say the hardest step when you're going for a walk is the first step out the door. It's the same with a PhD. The hardest sentence is the first one a student writes for the day. And also the problem is not social media. Because, stating that the problem is an ocean because people drown, so we won't go into the ocean because people drown. Well, we have to be very careful with our use of social media, I think. We have to use social media only in a way that enables, supports, cares and amplifies confidence. So join like-minded groups on Facebook. So for example, the Owls on Facebook, Older, Wiser Learners. That is a fabulous and supportive group. Follow #PhD chat so a student can find supportive friends doing a doctorate. And if anything negative emerges, just block it. Block, block, block. We also need to remember, I think, that perfectionism is not really about high standards. It's about control. Control of a student, control of a student's personal relationships, control of a student's career, indeed control of a student's PhD. And of course, sadly, as we all know, life cannot be controlled. The nature of work and life right now is that control is not possible. Now, I'm a dean. I'm a professor, and I don't know where I'm going to be 3 months from now. I don't know what I'll be doing. I don't know what country I'll be living in. I don't know what research I'll be focusing on, because life is not about control. Life is about adaptability. It's about agility. And it's also about really enjoying the current moment, today, because the future is not promised to any of us. The world is chaotic, and so, of course, is a student's PhD. For me, therefore, the goal has to be the 2 A's, agility and adaptability, not perfect and frazzled. But also no judgment of a student or others. Yes, other people get stuff wrong. Why should that be of any concern to our students? Wish those other people well in their success or their failure. That was their pilot project to their moment of success, and it has nothing to do with our students. So enjoy the companionship of others, but a PhD is not a race with one prize at the end. So we must keep reminding the student that the PhD is the worst work they will ever do, and therefore break it down into small chunks and feel the excitement when a student achieves something, no matter how small. There's no such thing as perfect writing. There's no such thing as perfect writers. We just have good editors. So if a student expects every sentence to emerge from a keyboard to be perfect, that is why a student can't write. Now, when I write, I expect every sentence that I write to be well dodgy, and then I draft it up into something truly fabulous. And we do that by enacting one task at a time. So a student finishes a PhD without competition, without judgment, and just working in a context of support and success and achievement. Thank you so much for sharing this time, this moment with me during this Touchstone session, and please contact me if I can be of any further assistance. Thank you for listening to Touchstones, our professional development program for graduate studies at Charles Darwin University.